Welcome back to Shift to Good Morning Abuja. And yes, we've been having an amazing time on the show this morning. We spoke with Elder Lazarus there, where we talked about some really important aspects of leadership as provided by traditional institutions. And we also examined one of the long serving traditional rulers within the space that is known as Abuja, but not known as FCT, funny enough. And this morning, my dear brother is here in the house. I'm talking about the cultural enthusiast himself, the baggy man, as I like to call him, and of course, one of our regular guests on the show, talking about Gaza Mark Alta, G Code. Welcome on the program this morning.
It's always a pleasure to be here.
Yes. Um, I don't know if you caught that interview we had with Elder Lazarus, where we examined the man, pharmacist Luca Baba Panya's 20 years anniversary and talking about the leadership that he has been providing to the Karo chiefdom in the last 20 years. I picked something from something he said. I don't know if you got that, but he said there is nothing, no other achievement or milestone that could be greater than peace. And for the past 20 years, they have been enjoying peace in Karo chiefdom. How do you see that?
Yes, it's actually a very thought-provoking statement. But when you look at the statement, it's very true. Anything you want to do in the world today, there has to be peace.
Mm.
Without peace, if there was no peace, I wouldn't be able to come to the studio to
Of course,
interface with you.
that is true.
So, peace is one of the ingredients of the the survival of any society.
Mm.
So I would key into his words 100%.
Wonderful. And in that light, we are still looking at traditional institutions, and this time around, we are talking about youth inclusiveness in the leadership structure of traditional institutions. Of course, when we say traditional institutions, we're talking about the king and, of course, the chiefs. And usually, it is usually perceived that people who hold such positions are the elders, so the youths are kind of left out, except when it comes to festivals. And as one of my friends would say from his own community, he said, the only time that they remember us for this, our community, will be youth when it comes to traditional matter. Now, when they need us to carry mass food. Well, that's not the case here in Abuja, especially certainly not the case in Chiefdom. But just break this down for us. What roles should youths be playing in the traditional institutional leadership?
Yes, the youths have a lot of roles to play. But first of all, I'd like to point out that the king is the custodian of every traditional institution. And most times the respect is paid to the throne itself and not the individual that is on the throne. And though the individual, of course, is like the vehicle that drives the whole process of the traditional institution. So, with that being said, the youth have a role to play because everybody has a role that he plays in a traditional setting and institution. And from the king, we have kingmakers. From the kingmakers, we have the traditional council. From the traditional council that uh, encompasses almost all the elders, the older women, even the youths within the traditional council. Now, I break it down this way. You know, even before the advent of the colonial masters, the traditional institution actually played an important role, being given owing to the or given to the fact that even the North, for example, it was easy to administer the North because the traditional institution was serving like democracy already.
Mm.
Everything was in place. So it was very easy to just have the indirect rule
Direct rule.
in the North. Now, having said that, from the traditional, the king is the sole custodian of the culture. The kingmakers make sure that he adheres to the cultural norms. The traditional council actually comes from the communities. Now, these communities, when they have meetings at the communities, Some of the people that come from the communities actually come from smaller clans, and you can call them extended families or even families. So you see the chain of reaction that goes all the way to the king, and everybody has a role to play, especially the youths. And the youths are always interwoven when it comes to carrying out like implementation and execution of all the plans of the traditional institution. And we thank God for modernization today. I don't think it just masquerades.
All right. Now let's come down to your own community now. Talking about Karo Chiefdom. I'm putting this in focus because I want you to be able to tell us from a place of experience. Now, what programs and initiatives would you say the traditional institution in Karo Chiefdom has for the youth?
Yes, I would say there have been a lot of initiatives that have been put in place by the traditional council. And one of them is maybe during our traditional festivals and our cultural festivals, in terms of the festivities, it is an opportunity for the older generation and the younger generation to interface. And they have some of these conversations. It's not just dancing and a display of cultural heritage. No, we also interface the elders that actually deliver papers on that day, trying to pass down the information and knowledge that they have to the youths and the future generation, you know. And then there are a lot of seminars once in a while that are being organized in town hall meetings where everybody gets to express himself, and then, of course, the much needed development of the community generally. That is where, and when you talk about this peace that we're enjoying, it is because there is an interface with all the relevant uh, figures in our chiefdom totally. And who are the custodians of some of these things is the youth, because the youth, are always in a hurry to get things done.
That's
And
true.
most times when they get the proper guidance and they are pointed in the right direction, it's easier for them to get things done. And that is why we enjoy the level of peace that we enjoy in Kabul.
Now let's talk about cultural identity and the erosion of it. It is more like we are more eager to become westernized in the name of modernization or civilization. Like, for example, from our dressing to our food to how we speak to the things we enjoy doing. You understand? A lot is being lost from our traditional culture, and our identity is being lost. We are trying so much to be like them. One thing in focus that always troubles me is how we marry. Gone are the days where marriages used to be traditional, used to be something that you look forward to. Now marriage is about going to the church or just having what is considered a cultural value of the whites. We have adopted it as a standard for describing modernization. Let's share your thoughts.
Cultural erosion is a conversation that the government even needs to key into, because I personally like to look at things from a different point of view. And then you study your past before you have a firm grasp of what your present should look like, and then you have an idea of what your future would be. And I give you an example. Um, During the slave trade, when the Europeans first stepped their foot on the sands of Africa, they came with gunpowder, and it was a very very tedious task for them because the African man then was very resilient. He was well built for war. So they had to, in the Berlin conference, in the Berlin conference, one of the issues that was discussed was to break the real fundamentals of what the African society was about, and that is their culture and their values. Now, when you strip a man of his culture and his value, it's easier for you to bring him down.
And take
And
ownership of
yes,
it.
and take ownership. So, and I like how Desmond Tutu puts it. He said, when the white man came to Africa, he had his Bible and we had the land. He asked us to close our eyes to pray.
When we
And when
opened
we
it,
opened our eyes,
he
he
had
had
the
the land
land
and
and
we
we
had the
had the
Bible.
Bible.
It's a very profound statement. You understand? The erosion of culture goes beyond just taking away our identity. What makes when you see a Jamaican or when you see a Japanese or a Chinese or a German, what's the first thing that helps you to identify who that person is? It is definitely through by it is definitely how he carries himself, and that carriage is built in his culture. What is the definition of culture? Culture is how you talk, the language you speak, how you dress, what you eat, how you bury your loved ones, and the rest of them.
Okay.
So, if you look at it from that particular aspect, then you should be able to tell that the erosion of culture is about to take away our identity. In the baggy cultural setting, for example, in those days, it was a taboo for you to steal. You are frowned upon in the community. They don't want you to even interface with the people of the community because you're a thief. You have gone so low. And if a woman takes in, she gets pregnant out of wedlock, she is isolated from the community. She's taken to a community that is out of our own community for the community to be cleansed. And when she gives birth, they cleanse her and then reintroduce her back into the community. It is because of our cultural erosion. That is why I always have an advice, even to the government. When people have these conversations that it is our constitution that is wrong with Nigeria or our institutions, I always say that the cultural values should be brought back. And if our cultural values are brought back, then I would understand that it is lowly of you to build a road somewhere or to put a bridge somewhere and you don't. And then you are looked upon as someone that is less of who should participate in the activities of the community and you are treated as such. Now, that is the fundamental. When you build the cultural value, you look at America, for example. Why will a citizen of America want to die for his flag? It is because they have built their culture and their values around the value system of the country.
That's very
So
true.
unless we go back to our culture, man is nothing without his culture.
Huh. You heard that from G Code. That is talking about Gazamak Outer. You are nothing without your culture. You are less of a person if you have lost your culture. So we must strive to always make sure that we stay with our culture. We continue to promote our culture. We continue to delve deep into our culture and at least preserve it for the children yet unborn. It's been an interesting conversation this morning on the show. Good morning, Abuja. And as always, lots of things to pick from the interview here with Gaza Mark Alta. Stay with us. You know, he's our regular on the show, and anytime he comes, there are things to learn. This is a very beautiful song by Bez Itakura.